Welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Kenya right here on KBC Channel 1. And just like we told you, this morning we'll be hosting the ICT and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary, Eliud Owalo, who's already with us in studio. Let's talk about 100 days of President Ruto's tenure, of course, in office, 100 days in office. And of course, later, we'll also talk about the 100 days in office of Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo. Thank you, sir, for joining us this morning. You're welcome to KBC.
Thank you. It's my pleasure indeed.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the 100 days of office for President Dr. William Samoei Ruto.
Yes.
What do you think have been his biggest achievements so far?
Okay, just to put us into the correct perspective, let me start by espousing the development agenda on the basis of which our campaign was anchored, and which has in turn provided now the overall policy framework and development agenda for government. Now, in the wisdom of His Excellency the President and his then running mate Rigathi Gachagua, they deemed it appropriate that we were going to change the paradigm as far as the development disposition of this country is concerned. So in the period leading to the campaigns, we adopted what is called a bottom-up economic approach. Now, historically, this country has always adopted what is called the trickle-down economic model, where the government at macro level comes up with the policy framework and determines the development agenda for the country at that level, at macro level, with very little input from the common mwananchi. The paradigm shift this time round is that the Kenya Kwanza coalition went around the country seeking the views of the common mwananchi so that their views could be integrated in the development agenda. These forums, which were held all over the country, in all the 47 counties, were meant to discern what, in the view of the Kenyans, were the fundamental challenges facing different parts of the country from an economic development perspective. So that if and when we formed government, then we will be having a development disposition which is aligned to the fundamental challenges facing the common mwananchi. Now, what then happened is this, that in each and every country, His Excellency the President led bottom-up economic forums entailing a direct conversation with the leaders of various value chains, with a view to determining what are the interventions that the government needs to put in place on forming government. Okay? So we collected these views from all over the country. This is what then turned into an economic charter, which our then presidential candidate, who is now the president, signed with the respective counties, committing his government by way of service delivery to certain minimum standards of performance from a development proposition or perspective. This county economic charters is what then informed the national economic charter, which informed again our overall campaign manifesto, on the basis of which our economic our campaign platform was anchored. So in a nutshell, we came up with a plan, the bottom-up economic plan. That was our manifesto. Now, in that bottom-up economic plan, we had 5 thematic areas. The first one was agriculture. The second one was micro, small and medium enterprises. The third one, housing and settlement. The fourth one, universal healthcare. And then the last one, the digital superhighway and the creative economy. Now, what informed this over and above the stakeholder fora that we had held all over the country? That the challenges that we needed to address included 1, high cost of living; 2, the need to eradicate hunger; 3, the need to create jobs, employment for our youth; 5, the need to widen the revenue base, and by extension, if the revenue base is widened, then we will actually be tilting the foreign exchange reserves or balance of payment, if you want to call it, in favor of Kenya as a country. Those were the challenges that we wanted to address. Now, in the thematic area of agriculture, there are 2 fundamental objectives that we wanted to achieve. 1, reduce the cost of living, and 2, create jobs. The cost of living has got the cost of food as a contributing component to the tune of 54% of the overall cost of living index. So if you want to reduce the cost of living, you have to reduce the cost of what? Of food. So what did the government do? The government went the productive approach, where you put in resources into production so that you enhance efficiency and effectiveness in the delivery chain, reduce the overall cost of production so that it translates eventually into a reduction in the overall cost of food. So for a start, deliberately and consciously, the government reduced the cost of fertilizer from the hitherto 6,500 shillings per bag to a meager 3,500 shillings per 50 kilogram bag. The government also has embarked on an aggressive intervention by way of farm inputs to the farmer, so that as we progress to the period of the long rains come early in the year, then there will be a critical mass of seeds, and fertilizer, being provided to the farmers by way of government support at affordable prices. This will translate into a reduction in the overall cost of production along the value chain, which translates into a reduction in the cost of food.
Let me cut you short a bit. Was there so that you explained to us a bit? Because the promise by the president was that in the 100 days, the cost of food will have come down. He actually said, Nikiweka Biblia chini. Do you think he's kept that promise?
We have likely kept that promise because it takes time from the time you embark on a farming process up to the time you get, first of all, the harvest and by extension, the output. We have embarked on this process deliberately, knowing very well that it needs time to mature, but also conscious of the fact that it's the only sustainable way of reducing the overall cost of production of agricultural produce. Target the productive sector, which is agriculture, if you want to reduce the cost of the overall cost of living index. Put money into agriculture, reduce the cost of farm inputs drastically, let that enhance the efficiency and productive processes in the value chain, of course augmented with other interventions such as ECT interventions, and then that translates into a reduction in the cost of the final product. It takes time to mature, but within the first 1 year, we shall have reduced these prices of food, and this will then now be sustainable in the long run. What we don't want to do as a government, because we are a government that speaks the truth, and this has been exhibited at the top echelons of government, that William Ruto will not give you a promise or give Kenyans a promise he has no intention of delivering. So what we say is what we do. We are aware that it may take time for this process to mature into the envisaged results, but we better go that route so that it is a sustainable process that leads to sustainable results, as opposed to knee-jerk interventions that are not sustainable.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's go to the second.
The second pillar is the micro, small, and medium enterprises. The fundamental challenge in this space is that those who are at the bottom of the economic pyramid, which are actually the critical mass of Kenyans, have been facing two challenges. One, lack of access to credit for purposes of commerce and trade. And two, high cost of that credit as and when it becomes available. Okay? Now, the government has introduced the so-called Hustler Fund into the market. This Hustler Fund has got various advantages. One, low rate of interest, or administrative costs, if I may call it, at 8%, compared to the prevailing market rate of about 14% interest. Okay? Two, you don't need security to access the Hustler Fund. In fact, in the long run, the more progressive this fund grows, you will basically be leveraging on your credit scoring proposition to access funds. That will be the basis on which your evaluation will be done, not on the basis of the amount of security that you do that you have. From an administrative perspective, this fund is also leveraging on the existing technological platforms to disburse the money. Okay? So what do you need? You need just to apply to the fund. Yeah? You need your phone. Okay? And then you get the what? The money directly. So we don't have committees in this space, which Kenyans are used to when the government is disbursing funds. So there is no committee to do the screening. There are no brokers. It is between you, your phone, and the government. Okay? So we are leveraging on that technology to disburse the fund. And now another fundamental introduction or interjection in the market that this fund will bring into the fold by way of value proposition is the fact that it introduces a saving culture within our public body fabric. Within our body fabric. One, we have not been having a savings culture. If you don't save, you don't invest. There's no way you are going to invest if you don't save. Those are basic fundamental economic principles. Now, 5% of whatever amount of money that is disbursed to an individual goes towards his saving. Your savings. 30% of that saving can be accessed in the medium, in the short term, within a period of 1 year. 70% of that saving component goes to long-term saving, which then can turn into what? Turn into a pension in old age. So what are we doing in short? We are actually not just enabling Kenyans to access finance for credit, we are also enabling them to save, and by extension have some resources available at their disposal to invest, and also ensuring security in old what? In old age. All within the ambit of one major government intervention in the financial marketplace called the Hustler Fund. Yes.
That's financial inclusion.
Financial inclusion. Now, too, overall, with this intervention in the market, we are going to get more people who are hitherto not having anything to do, getting into productive economic activity. When this happens, and leveraging on technological developments we are introducing into the financial space, which I will espouse or articulate shortly, we are bringing in more people into the tax bracket, because we have got individuals who had no source of income. Now they are engaged in gainful activity by way of entrepreneurship or commerce or trade. They have some disposable income now, so they can be brought into the tax bracket, so that they also contribute towards economic growth of the country by way of tax revenue. So that's another what? Another advantage. But I'll come to details on that later. And then 3, overall, we are turning Kenyans who are not having anything to do into either entrepreneurs or employers, as opposed to job seekers. We no longer have white-collar jobs. The space that we have is the opportunity for entrepreneurship. So we are making Kenyans to become entrepreneurs and employers, as opposed to job seekers. Those are fundamental benefits of the Hustler Fund.
All right. Let's move to the digital superhighway pillar of that manifesto. Of course, having served as Deputy Secretary General UDA, you're well versed with some of the promises made by the President. Let's talk about the public Wi-Fi that you've launched in City Market, Muthurwa, Wakulima, and of course Nyeri Town lately. The previous administration had such a plan that they piloted in Nakuru. It didn't work. What makes you think that this one will work? And in that end, what will be the direct impact to Kenyans?
Okay, before I talk about thinking or otherwise whether it will work, let me talk about what we want to work. One, the digital superhighway was, in the wisdom of the President and his then running mate, an imperative interjection into our economic plan, because ICT is seen not just an enabler of all the other thematic areas, but also a critical success factor moving forward. So what do we intend to do? And this is what I've been tasked to oversee by His Excellency the President. We want to introduce into the marketplace an ICT infrastructure to the tune of 100,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable. This will ensure that those parts of the country which hitherto had not been enabled from an ICT infrastructure perspective will have fiber. Okay? To augment this, we are deliberately introducing into the public space 25,000 free Wi-Fi hotspots, so that people can have access to credit internet. Internet for purposes of what? of commerce, okay? And this is free Wi-Fi. So we are not just thinking of reducing the cost of data. We are going to step forward to provide free Wi-Fi in integral components of the Kenyan society, like markets, schools. And then we are going a step further to establish and operationalize a total of 1,450 digital hotspots. Now, with that in place, we can then move to the next level and think of how we want to leverage on technological platforms to facilitate delivery of government services. So what do we want to do? One, we want to digitize all government records so that they'll be on e-platform. We'll have e-records as opposed to manual records. Once that is in place, we want to onboard all remaining government services onto an enhanced technological platform on the basis of which government services can now be accessed. As we speak, we have got 350 government services aboard the e-citizen platform. We are actually at the tail end of making that e-citizen platform a government entity or a government infrastructure, and with that in place, we want to move with speed, effective January 2023, to ensure that a minimum of 5,000 government services are on board that technological platform so that Kenyans can interface with government or access government services virtually. Now, to facilitate this, we are simultaneously also rolling out a major ICT literacy program. That is the e-skills program. And we are targeting members of the public, we are targeting all public servants, we are targeting people who are in critical sectors such as the health services, people who are involved in the security organs, and so on and so forth, so that we have got adequate or commensurate level of ITC skills to facilitate optimal uptake of the ICT infrastructure that we are introducing into the marketplace. This working together or put together should enable us, one, realize a paperless government on one hand, and on the other hand, ensure that members of the public are capable and able to access government services from the comfort of wherever they are, including but not limited to their houses. So that is one introduction, major paradigm shift. We are going a step further to introduce what is called a national addressing system, aided by ICT coding framework, so that we can move this country away from the traditional way of doing business to what is called e-commerce. Starting all the way from the supplies up to the market. Across the entire value chain, we can transact all our business using e-commerce, and we also know you leverage on this for purposes of other major interventions like even courier services, so that we identify physical, we don't need to have streets, but we can have coded devices that facilitate identifications of locations of various establishments as opposed to the physical naming of streets. Then three, we are going the route of digital entrepreneurship. With the infrastructure in place and the commensurate skills, we want to ensure that we don't just become consumers of ICT technology, but producers of ICT software and hardware. Now, within the Kwanza Technopolis, which is our own version of the Silicon Savannah, we already have basic infrastructural setup. That is envisaged to be our smart city. We have the infrastructure in place. We already have a fully functional data center at the Kwanza Technopolis. Okay, so we are reaching out to the private sector to come in there as investors. Already our telecommunication companies are pulling together their resources with a view to enjoying economies of scale and being in a position to embark on an ambitious program of manufacture of handsets, telephone handsets. That will also help us fill in the challenge or the void that may be witnessed within the hustler space, because we are leveraging on technological platforms to provide government services. We need to ensure that simultaneously there is a critical mass of smart enabled telephones available in the hands of the common mwananchi, so that they are able to uptake the technological advancement that we have in place. We are looking at a situation where within this coming year, the year 2023, Kenya will become a manufacturer of cheap, smart, enabled telephones at a market cost of about 3,500 shillings per unit. Yes.
And that is actualizing the digital economy promise.
Yes. Now, those are actually the intentions. But you asked me a question on to what do we need to do?
Absolutely.
Yeah? What do we need to do to ensure that this time around this is realized? You don't implement any change initiative in a vacuum. It has to be anchored on transformational leadership and change, effective change management as major intervening or moderating factors. The advantage we have within the Kenya Kwanza government is that, one, we have got a leadership that has got a passion of delivery of services to the common mwananchi. We have got a leadership that is not afraid to take risks. In any business, you should be able to take risk, being a risk taker. If you're not a risk taker, then you are actually confined to your comfort zone. There's nothing new you are going to introduce into the market. We have got a leadership that is ready and willing to take risks so long as there is light at the end of the tunnel from a vision perspective. So this is what we are witnessing at the top echelons of government, that we have got a president who is transformational in its approach to conduct of government business. The will is there, the commitment is there at the very top, and it can only be cascaded downwards to the lowest levels.
All right, interesting.
Yeah.
At the center of it, obviously, actualizing the digital promise is technology and innovation, which is the theme of the Jamhuri Day celebrations.
Yes.
And then an exhibition by innovators before the Jamhuri Day celebrations.
Yeah.
What is the government intending to do in terms of supporting innovators and taking up innovations? Because some of the concerns by the exhibitors was the fact that the government is not providing enough support to innovators.
You see, the business of any government is not to compete in business with the private sector. The business of government is to ensure that there is an enabling policy, legal, and regulatory framework that facilitates the private sector to be able to exploit its full potential. So what the government needs to do, and this is what we are doing, is to constantly engage stakeholders in the business environment based on unfolding events from time to time to determine the issues, the emerging issues in the operational environment, and the desirable strategic interventions that the government needs to introduce by way of either policy, legal, or regulatory reforms in response to the demands of of the market. So as government, we are ready and willing, to ensure that there is an enabling policy, legal, and regulatory framework. And in this vein, we will not just be consulting with stakeholders in various sectors, depending on unfolding events from time to time. We will also be consulting with the legislative arm of government, which is the parliament, for purposes of review or enactment of any necessary legislations as the need may be, depending on unfolding events from time to time.
On the 11th, the president spoke about why the celebrations, the Jamhuri Day celebrations, will obviously be anchored on technology and innovation, and he spoke about the youth. As the ICT minister, talk about how we are going to leverage on ICT to reap from the youth dividend in the country.
The youth have got a huge potential within the creative economy. We have got youth with immense talent in drama, in music, in theater and arts, just to mention but a few. If we leverage on technology, we are actually in a position to turn this youth into entrepreneurs. 2 weeks ago, the president launched a digital hub at the Kabete Polytechnic. We spoke to the young boys and girls who are graduates of that entity, and they told us that hitherto they were unemployed. Today they are earning, direct earning of ranging between 150 to 200,000 Kenya shillings. These earnings are actually from digital jobs within the digital space. Okay? So what are we doing? What are we saying? We have got the potential within the country and within our youth, within the digital space. We want to move this country away from the pursuit for white-collar jobs where people are sitting in offices, where we are leveraging on technology based on the skills, competencies, and capabilities of our youth to pursue digital jobs. The skills and competencies are widely abundant in the Kenyan space, and all we are asking the tech players is to make sure that there are digital jobs available for our youth. It is in this light that the president again consciously and deliberately accepted the proposition that our last Jamhuri Day celebrations be anchored on an innovation and ICT anchorage, proposition. Now, we were using that to bring out the potential that and opportunities that we have within the digital space. We have immense potential. We went ahead to also invite global tech leaders, which the president initiated directly to ensure that we got the leaders of Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and so on, coming here, not just to espouse what they are able to do during the Kenya Innovation and ICT Week, but also physically being available at the Nyayo Stadium during the Jamhuri Day celebrations. This is just but a beginning. Moving forward, of course, we will be having other orientations during national holidays, but I still foresee a situation where ICT will become the cog around which the Kenyan development will rotate. All these other thematic areas will have to leverage on technology for purposes of re-engineering of their processes. Yeah.
You've spoken about e-citizen a while ago.
Yeah.
And of course, at the core of digitizing more than 5,000 government services,
yes,
and putting them on e-citizen.
Yeah.
But this ownership row, Webster, Gold Rock, government, that sounds scandalous.
Well, I don't really want to go into that history. My concern is where we are, how we can bring order into that space, and what we need to do moving forward. You see, this is something with a historical disposition starting way back, I think, in 2013, okay? So we don't really want to go into that history, because anything has got a history. That history could have had its own challenges, which can be sorted out. They are not insurmountable, so to speak. But I want to focus on what we can do with this platform moving forward. We can take it over as government, which we are at the tail end of negotiations to do. Okay. See how to escalate or enhance its capacity and capability, and then onboard more government services onto it, so that we have got a paperless government. We are facilitating delivery of government services virtually. And to augment this, in parallel, we are also pursuing an initiative of ensuring that we have what is called a single digital identity for all Kenyans, okay? As opposed to the traditional ID card, we can have a single digital identity so that anybody transacting business with government can virtually be identified by government. You don't need to go to a government offices for government to know whom you are. You can transact business with government, if that happens, from the comfort of your house.
Which brings me to the point that your predecessor, in conjunction with the Interior Ministry, there was a program called the Huduma Number Registration. Spent up 10 billion shillings of taxpayers' money. What is the status of the Huduma Number?
Huduma Number is Huduma Number. To me, the focus is why it was found to be imperative. So let us not be stuck with the name Huduma Number. The intention was that we need to have a digital what? Identity. There was a process of introducing that Huduma Number. If you ask me, the level of stakeholder engagement was not up to what is required, and there's room for improvement. Whenever you are introducing that type of change, one, you need to explain to the Kenyan public why that change is necessary, how that change will affect them, what at the tail end will be the fundamental benefits of that change program. Okay, this was not done, and this is what brought about a lot of suspicion and all speculations around that Huduma Number issue. But to me, the intention was good. The approach may not have been the best. So if the intention was good, then how do we capitalize on that situation? Of course, while also taking into context that there were certain fundamental challenges within the introduction of that Huduma, so that we use that as lessons learned to improve as we introduce a similar intervention in the marketplace. So the idea is good. What we need is a digital identity. We have got platforms all over the world which are leveraging on this single digital platform. We are already engaging some of the sector players, international sector players, so that we are not reinventing the wheel, but we can benchmark, introduce, and customize to our own peculiar situation similar digital identities that have successfully been utilized elsewhere.
The digital identity that you're talking about.
Yes.
Could we correctly say then the government plans to leverage on Huduma number to give Kenyans the digital identity you're talking about?
Where I want you to move away from is this issue of Huduma number.
Yes.
I want you to look at the concept, the conceptualization that we need a single digital identity. You can call it anything. Yeah, so let us not be captive to this issue of Huduma number, because then it introduces again the negative historical issues that were associated with it. So let's look at this issue from a conceptualization perspective. Is the idea good? Yes. Are there challenges which were faced? Yes. Can we turn those challenges into lessons learned and opportunities and then build on it moving forward? Yeah.
These challenges that you talk about, particularly in the digital identity, how does your ministry plan to deal with them? Because some of the concerns obviously was on issues of breach of privacy and issues like that. How does your ministry plan to deal with it?
You see, issues to do with breach of privacy, we have got an enabling policy framework and a legal framework to address that. So that is taken care of within the law. But one fundamental thing that we need to do is effective communication. From the very beginning, map out the integral stakeholders who need to be engaged as we introduce a single digital identity, including but not limited to the Kenyan public, because it's an integral stakeholder in all this process. Now, through an effective communication framework so that they understand what we are doing, why that intervention is necessary, the likely repercussions, the likely changes, but ultimately the benefits of the Huduma number. If you tell a Kenyan that leveraging on technology, he or she can transact business with the government from the comfort of wherever he or she is, I believe everybody will be receptive to the idea. But it needs adequate sensitization. If we put in place the single digital identity and the enhanced platform on the basis of which the 5,000 services should be onboarded, we should be able to have an e-migration system, we should be able to have e-transport, we should be able to have e-revenue collection services at all levels, both the national government level and within all the counties, just to mention but a few integral areas which we are targeting. The land registry, for example, that needs to be upscaled so that it fully leverages on a digital platform and so on and so forth. Yeah, the benefits will be enormous.
Absolutely. Yeah. You've spoken about, lowering the cost of data, obviously through the public Wi-Fi initiative. Some of the concerns I'm seeing from Kenyans this morning is the rate of calls and SMSs. Waziri. They remain still very high. We
are talking to the telecommunication companies, engaging them. First of all, in my ministry, I've made it very clear that I'll adapt a participatory approach to the running of that ministry, that we will constantly be engaging the relevant stakeholders depending on unfolding events from time to time. Already, His Excellency the President himself has reached out to the telecommunications companies with a view to having the cost of data reduced. And we are engaged in progressive talks towards that objective. Now, one thing you need to understand is that the cost of data also does not emanate in a vacuum. It is informed by the ICT infrastructure that needs to be put into place to facilitate delivery of what? Of those services, like internet services included. So we are pursuing deliberately, again, through logistical, requisite legislations and policy frameworks, the option of the telecommunication companies sharing infrastructure so that they optimize on the costs. Okay? For example, why should Safaricom roll out a fiber line in a given area? Airtel is also rolling out another fiber, yeah, along the same. We can get these telecommunications companies working together as much as they may be competitors, but on critical issues such as ICT infrastructure, they can work together to leverage on economies of scales with a view to reducing their overall cost of transactions. Yeah.
Let's take a breather, Waziri, then we'll come back with more to talk about.
Yeah.
We'll even talk about the revival of corporations that fall under you. But then again, the media sector,
yes,
which we represent here, and of course others out there.
Yes.
We'll talk about the future of the media sector in Kenya. Don't go too far. We're talking to the ICT and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary, Eliud Owalo. You're taking a breather. Don't go too far.
Thank you.
Welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Kenya. We're live with the Cabinet Secretary, ICT and Digital Economy, Eliud Owalo, has been with us in studio. Waziri, let's talk about the revival plan for state corporations under you. And for example, let's start with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, where you are today.
Yes.
I think you've seen the responses of Kenyans over the few weeks since this government came into place, and the expectation that lies in the shoulders of KBC.
Yes.
What is your plan?
Now, I did mention from the very onset during my vetting by Parliament that I would wish that my performance be evaluated on the basis of revival or revitalization of KBC as a major performance indicator, among other imperatives. Why did I say this? Because one, it is mind-boggling that KBC, with its history, rich history, and vantage positioning and brand, is punching below its weight in the marketplace. I believe we can do something about this great institution. One, you need to understand where KBC is coming from. It has got two anchorages by way of mandate. One, it has got a mandate to deliver public communication, but also on the other hand, it is also pursuing private sector interest by way of by way of profit. So this is one of the challenges that KBC has been facing. The fundamental challenges, of course, include but not limited to issues to do with old infrastructure, the need to reinvigorate or revitalize the content, and also ultimately work on low levels of staff morale. There's need also for enhanced staff motivation. We are already reaching out to prospective partners in the private sector so that we see ways and means of getting into working relationship with them so that we turn around this great entity. We are also getting involved in consultations within government at various levels to see what government needs to do based on the mandate of KBC to support this institution. But again, in a sustainable manner, we must have a turnaround strategy. The operational environment in which KBC is operating today is different from the environment it was operating in 20 years ago, where it could constantly rely on government support to do what? To survive. We have to rethink the model, the business model that KBC is deploying. As late as last week, I was involved in discussions, meetings with the management of KBC. I've been involved in meetings with the National Treasury. And without going into the details, because some of these discussions are at very delicate final stages now, all I can assure Kenyans is that we will turn around KBC. we will definitely do what we can do to turn around this great institution.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll keep taking you up on that promise.
Yes.
But that is not the only.
We also have the Postal Corporation also facing challenges, old infrastructure, a wrong business model. Posta really needs to go the direction of e-commerce if it is to survive. Again, we have been holding consultations with the management of Postal Corporation. Some of the changes we want to introduce within Posta may need infusion of some high level of creativity and innovation from the private sector. So these are things we are looking at, and we will see what we need to do to introduce new thinking within the leadership of Posta itself, and also as government see what we need to do to support that great entity. It has got massive infrastructure all over the country, which we can leverage on for purposes of e-commerce. Yeah.
When you look at some of those institutions that you're speaking about, the history and then where they are today, what does it point to? What pattern does it point to? So that these institutions, once you are done with your revival plan, they don't find themselves again in the next 5 years.
You see, we have to change the mindset. We have to change the mindset, not just for Posta and KBC and KNA, but across the entire government. We have to introduce a private sector mentality in the conduct of our business, as opposed to public sector mentality. I've come into this space to facilitate transformational change and offer proper leadership. If we are going to continue with business as usual, then it is not worth being in this space. There are certain changes that we must really introduce if we are to turn around these entities. We cannot continue with business as usual. We have to think outside the box, if not without the box, if that is possible. And this is something that has to be cascaded all the way to the lowest levels of staff in these institutions. We must accept change, embrace change, and then see what we need to do moving forward.
All right. Let's talk about the media space, the space under which we operate. And I think during the campaigns, there was kind of a systemic campaign, probably by the media against the candidature of President William Ruto. But then that brought about the fear that this administration could clamp down on the freedom of the media. What is your assurance to journalists and media houses today as the ICT minister?
One of the stakeholders I met in the very, very early days of my tenure in office was the Editors Guild. And I remember during that function, I told them that the government has got no intention of muzzling the media or interfering with freedom of the media. They'll continue enjoying their fundamental rights and freedoms as enshrined in our constitutional dispensation. But we also need objectivity on the side of the media. We need to work on the relationship between the media and government so that we are seen to be complementers of each other as opposed to what? As opposed to competitors. One of the reasons why I think we got to where we were in terms of relationship between the government and the media is lack of constant consultations and engagement. Just yesterday, I was having a meeting with the Media Owners Association, just to understand some of the challenges they are facing, look at some of the emerging issues in the industry which government needs to respond to. And one integral output of that meeting is that we both recognize that we need to work together to complement each other if we are to realize our goals and objectives, despite the fact that we have got different mandates. We have to work together. And my office is open for consultations depending from time to time. In fact, one of the things I'm thinking of doing in the new year is to constitute a media industry sector working group that can bring together representatives from the ministry, from the Media Owners Association, Kenya Union of Journalists, the Editors Guild, the Media Council, the Association distribution of news correspondents, just to mention but a few, all these integral stakeholders, so that we have got a forum which can be meeting regularly and just to discuss emerging issues in the operational environment and what we need to do as a sector to address challenges. I did tell Media Owners Association that it is also incumbent upon them to rethink their business model. The world is today moving the digital economy space, okay? And that means that there is need for a change of the business model, more so from a revenue perspective, so that the media moves away from over focus on their traditional sources of revenue and see what revenue streams they can leverage on based on technological platforms, because the operational environment has fundamentally changed. Why the media is getting caught up and some of the media houses are today struggling is because they are continuing the business as usual, yet the operational environment has changed. The target population has changed. We have got a younger population that is largely focused on technological news platforms as opposed to print. Yeah, and yet we are stuck there, still doing things the same way. Why don't we take ourselves to the demands of the market first, what the market needs, and then work backwards and then align to that? If we do that, then we will have sustainability in the in media operations. As we speak, we are actually taking products to the market and forcing the market to uptake those products. Let's go the full paradigm shift and start by determining the needs of the market, yeah, and then come back and come up with a business model that is aligned to the demands of the market. That is the only way we can ensure sustainability of the media. So to answer you, we have to rethink the business model of all media houses.
Absolutely. As we shift and rethink, it's a very tough time for journalists at this point.
Yes.
I think about 5 media houses in the Republic have announced that they are going to be restructuring their businesses, which obviously is going to render positions redundant. Waziri, there's obviously the question of exploitation of journalists.
Yes.
How is the ministry going to work towards keeping that at bay, even as the restructuring happens, that there's no exploitation of people who are in this craft?
One, everybody needs to be rewarded to a level commensurate with his or her contributing component in all spheres of life, the media inclusive, or the journalists inclusive. One of the discussions I had with the Media Owners Association is how we can halt the intended mass layoffs of staff, as the government also does its bit. You see, one of the challenges the media houses has been facing is that the revenue stream, one component of the revenue stream emanating from GAA advertisements, has not been forthcoming. We are unlocking that. I think between today and Friday, we are going to have quite some substantial payment from government to the media houses, at least to enable them have something to pay off staff before they break for the Christmas holidays. And we are also getting involved. We have gotten involved in consultations at the relevant levels of government, so that we clear the outstanding debts owed to the media houses to the tune of 1.2 billion shillings. That progressively we should be able to clear. But this is just one revenue stream. I don't want the media to be captive in a situation where they think if they don't get advertisement from government, if they don't get payment from government, then they cease to exist. They must pursue alternative revenue streams away from government to be able to be sustainable. You must diversify your revenue streams. There are no two ways. You can't just rely on one revenue stream. But what we can do as government, based on our obligations, we will do to support the media houses. But also what I'm mentioning again on the flip side of this is that I made a humble appeal. I can only appeal to the media houses to reconsider the intended mass layoff of staff, as we see how the situation stabilizes over the next few months. And we did, by way of consensus, believe, agree that they are going to go back to their offices and consider that proposition. Yeah.
Let me take you back a bit, because you talk about collaborative efforts between the media houses and government.
Yes.
And tell us, what kind of a relationship do you pursue? Because I think you've seen critics who say if the media goes to bed with government, what
you see, as government, we have got nothing to hide. Yeah, we have got nothing to hide. As and when the media needs any information from government, we are a transparent government. This has been espoused from the very top echelons government. We will provide the information. We also need the media to continue being a watchdog of government, so that they put us on its toes and also exercise the fundamental responsibility they have to the Kenyan public to inform the public of what is going on, not just in government, but in across our entire operational spectrum. So we don't want to go to bed with the media. All we are asking for is that we need to be complementary in our efforts. Let the media do its bit. Let the government do its bit. We are not going to interfere with the freedom of the media. In fact, now that you have asked, the position of both His Excellency the President and his deputy is that they have got no issues to pick with the media, despite the negative publicity that we got in the last elections. We are a government that's futuristic. We are not a government that is going to be bogged down by the past. And I did mention to the media houses at yesterday's meeting that even those media houses that came out with guns blazing, hitting at the leadership of the Kenya Kwanza coalition during the last general elections, they did what in their wisdom was right, and we have got no issues with that. But all we are asking for, now we are government, what do we do to make this country better? The government is a stakeholder, media is also a stakeholder. How do we work together? Because as government, Kenya Kwanza government, our focus is on delivery of services to the common mwananchi. We will give the media houses the freedom, the press freedom that is enshrined in our constitutional dispensation, but we also need objectivity. We did agree, for example, that media can augment government efforts. Look at the drought situation. We want the media to be part and work with government as we come up with sustainable ways of addressing this drought situation through positive communication to the public. Look at the tree planting exercise. We are embarking on a nationwide tree planting exercise led by His Excellency the President himself. As we speak, he should be either on his way or is already at the Ngong Forest, launching the national tree planting exercise. And the government envisaged to plant minimum of 5 million trees. From here, I'm actually also on my way up country to go and plant trees in my home country. All cabinet secretaries are out in the field leading the tree planting exercise, the commencement of this government rolled out tree planting exercise. That is a very, very positive intervention where we can work or leverage on positive relationship with the media so that they help us in propagating or sensitizing the public that the only way we can address negative effects of climate change is by planting trees. And the media houses accepted that they will augment our efforts in this initiative. So there are very many ways of collaboration between government and the media. By having a positive working relationship, it does not mean the media goes to bed with government and then abandons its cardinal responsibility. No, let the media continue doing its bit. Let the government also do its bit. But there are areas, ways and means of working together for the benefit of all Kenyans.
All right.
Yeah.
The next 5 years for Eliud Owalo as the ICT and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary. What do you foresee? What is your vision for the ministry?
My vision is an empowered and digitized Kenyan society. I want to facilitate a paperless government. I believe that we should be able to leverage on technology to position Kenya effectively by way of comparative advantage in the global marketplace. We can position Kenya effectively as the ICT hub of Africa. If we do that, we can, in effect, or by extension, position Kenya effectively as a viable investment destination. Overall, I would wish to see a situation where we leverage on technology to achieve two fundamental objectives. One, reduce the cost of living by capitalizing on ICT or leveraging on the potential of ICT to enhance efficiency and effectiveness in our production processes and re-engineering, of course, all our production processes. Two, create jobs for our youth. If I can achieve those two, yeah, reduction of cost of living overall, yeah, creation of jobs through ICT, yeah, and ensuring that we achieve an empowered and digitalized Kenyan society, I will be game. I believe I shall have delivered on my mandate.
Absolutely.
And I believe I'm equal to the task. I've got the passion and I'm raring to go.
All right.
Yes.
Let's get to the softer part of this interview because it's the first time interviewing you as Cabinet Secretary. Your switch from a strategist,
yes,
at the back room, to now being at the front as minister, because you were a political strategist before. How is that switch? How are you feeling 100 days later?
Well, I wouldn't say I've been a political strategist. I would say that I've practiced strategy within the political space.
Okay.
But my
strategy within political
within the political space. You see, there is really no fundamental paradigm shift here from a strategy perspective. There are three important facets of strategy. Okay, there is a strategy formulation, that is the beginning, yeah, which have largely been involved in. Actually, I've been the consultant for development of most strategic plans in this country, be they government ministries or parastatals. Then the strategy implementation, and then now the strategy monitoring, evaluation, and reporting. I've been involved in the strategy formulation component. Now I'm driving the government agenda within my ministry, so I'm now involved in strategy implementation, execution. Other players, of course, will continue being involved to enable us to deliver, to being involved in strategy monitoring, evaluation and reporting, including members of the public and including the very, very media we have been talking about, so that they keep checks and balances and also report on our performance. So I've just shifted positions from strategy formulation to strategy implementation. And let's see how it plays out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You've been on food relief distribution the last few weeks, and particularly in your home turf. First of all, your evaluation of the drought situation in the country and the immediate needs for Kenyans in your relief or food relief distribution.
The government has an elaborate program to alleviate the fundamental challenges of the negative impacts of drought. There is food which the government has brought in to take to those areas which are affected. Nyanza, fundamentally, quite a number of places in Nyanza are also affected by the drought situation, just as Baringo, as is the case in Turkana, and have been leading government efforts in that area to ensure that those segments of the Kenyan society in that region who are affected by the negative effects of drought don't get wiped out because of famine. So it is a short-term government intervention. Long-term, as we move forward, we are coming up as government with the deliberate efforts to ensure food security. Okay? One, we are coming up with we are moving away from rain-fed agriculture to irrigation-led agriculture. Yeah. Two, we are supporting the farmers by way of reduced cost of fertilizer and also seeds as farm inputs, moving into the period of the long rains. Yeah. So what I've been doing is just part of the overall government efforts. Yeah.
And yet it has put you at crosshairs with some people. How do you respond to your critics?
You see, who are these some people? You see, as government, we have got an agenda which is responsive to the fundamental challenges facing the Mwananchi. And we have said guaranteed unequivocally that the performance of the William Ruto-led government will be on the basis of, one, the fundamental challenges facing the people and how responsive this government is going to be in addressing that. Two, delivery of the promises that we made to the people based on our manifesto and the government agenda that we now want to roll out. Our performance indicator will emanate from those two thematic areas. Yeah, if you are looking for a performance indicator from William Ruto's government in the area of politics, you'll be disappointed because we don't exist in that space. We have got no programs to pursue within the arena of politics over the next 5 years. Ours is an economic agenda. So don't expect a scorecard from us in the area of politics. Yeah. So I would be more concerned about what, in the view of the ordinary Kenyan, is the performance of this government. And we are saying that, especially in that region of Nyanza, the only discussion or politics we are going to do in that region is politics of the economy. The discourse that we are going to have with the people there is economic discourse based on the tangible and feasible and viable economic development blueprint that we developed for that region, which we want to roll out. And that development agenda has got issues to do with the agricultural sector, issues touching on the sugar sector, issues touching on cotton, issues touching on rice, the blue economy in general, by way of the thematic area of fishing, how we can facilitate optimal exploitation of our fishing industry, and even tourism. Yeah, we have got the lake tourism circuit. How do we exploit the potential within that ambit of the lake tourism circuit? From an infrastructure perspective, we also have the Lake Region Ring Road. Can we roll it out so that it opens out the entire lake region for purposes of commerce and trade? We need to think of what we can do in micro and small enterprises, leveraging on the Hustler Fund, so that both our youth and women involved in itinerary trade can get access to credit for purposes of itinerary trade, and also youth who are involved in the Juakali sector. There's that space of mining. From a policy perspective, how do we ensure that whatever revenues are emanating from mining, a substantial proportion of it goes back to the people of the region who own the land, which is actually from where the mining is being, the minerals are being extracted from. We have a lot of potential within the livestock sector, the hides and skins. Can we think of coming up with a tanning factory, for example, so that we actually become manufacturers of shoes? Eventually, if we do that, let me tell you something. Today, we are selling skin at 50 shillings. Whoever picks it from that region exports the hides and skins and makes it. They use it to make 3 pairs of shoes. They bring back the shoes here. They sell it to Kenyans at a minimum of 10,000. So they make a net profit of 29,950. Can't we capitalize on that potential so that we have a tanning factory in that area, so that we take our hides and skins to that tanning factory, manufacture shoes, low-cost shoes, so that when our children are going to school, they are buying shoes at 300 to 400 shillings as opposed to the 2,000 that we used to buy shoes from the Bata establishments. Those are some of the innovative and creative thinking. The sports potential we have in that area, how do we harness it? Yeah, the creative economy, how do we leverage on it? What do we do with ICT? Yeah, and all the potential or attendant benefits that come with it. Those are some of the discussions that we want to have in that region, and it's on the basis of those intentions that we will be engaging the people.
It's important you've spoken about fish, particularly in that region. Yeah, protecting those in the trade of fishing. Yeah, from fish imports. Yes. And I think that has, over the last few years, we've seen, a lot of fish imports coming into Kenya. Yeah. How do you protect those engaged in the fish trade, particularly from that region, from the fish imports?
You see, that has to be done through some enabling policy framework. The minister responsible for mining and the blue economy has been to that region. Salim Mvurya has been to that region. I think on 3 different occasions he has toured all the beaches there. He has directly talked to the fishermen. He has listened to what government needs to do. One, we need the fish processing plants established along those beaches. We also need to adapt modern techniques of fishing, and I must say that the government is already fairly responsive in this domain. One of the businesses that we conducted in cabinet, our very first cabinet, successfully, and His Excellency the President appended his signature to it, is the establishment of a 3 billion shillings fish training institute to be located in that region, in a place called Kabonyo in Nyando constituency. That again will give our fishermen the opportunity to adapt modern techniques of fishing. This is just one of the interventions that have already been introduced. But moving forward, I believe the ministry responsible for the blue economy will do what it takes to ensure that fishermen in that region are capacitated and enabled to exploit their full potential. And I can state without fear of contradiction that I believe this will be done. I'm actually in constant talks with and consultations with Salim Mvurya, and I'm abreast of some of the interventions that they intend to undertake in that space.
All right.
Yeah.
As is with any assessment,
yes,
there's always the hits and the misses.
Yes.
From where you see 100 days later, do you think there are misses for the Kenya Kwanza administration?
You know, we have done fundamentally well, considering the fact that, believe you me, this government has just been fully constituted 2 weeks ago. That is when we got the principal secretaries. The principal secretaries are accounting officers in government. Over and above the overall plan that we had, we have also realized fundamental milestones within the ministry, despite the fact that we had not even been having accounting officers. For example, the Ministry of Sports. Ababu has managed to ensure that the FIFA ban on Kenya as a country has been lifted. Moses Kuria, for example, has ensured that we have won a major export potential for our tea to Ghana. We have actually managed also to get waiver of visa to South Africa. Mutua has managed to achieve that. We have signed several bilateral agreements within the environment space related to climate change and all that. The President led the Kenyan delegation to South Korea. We got support of $1 billion or capital injection into our Kwanza metropolis. So there are a lot of fundamental achievements that have been realized by the line ministries, which were not actually part and parcel of the plan that we had, but aligned to that plan, which we need to recognize. So I would say that we have actually done well. We have actually done well, extremely well, within the first 100 days. Yeah.
All right. Today is His Excellency the President's birthday.
Yes.
In this camera, I don't know what you would want to tell His Excellency.
May I take this opportunity to wish His Excellency the President a happy birthday. As he enjoys his birthday, he's also leading the entire country into a major tree planting campaign. I want to take this opportunity to appeal to all Kenyans to embark on the journey of tree planting, so that as part and parcel of our green initiatives, we come up with we implement efforts that will ensure that we mitigate the negative effects of climate change. May I also take this opportunity to wish His Excellency the President a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. And on behalf of government, His Excellency the President and his entire cabinet and the entire government, I also want to take this opportunity to wish Kenyans a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. We look forward to working with Kenyans from all perspectives as we move into the new year, so that we can realize our goals and objectives as was envisaged in the Kenya Kwanza plan.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Your promise to Kenyans, still on that camera.
Yes.
What is your promise to Kenyans in the coming year?
We will deliver on the promises that we made to the Kenyan public. We will ensure that there is an enabling policy, legal and regulatory framework to enable the private sector exploit their potential. We will create the necessary environment for all other stakeholders, starting with the media, to be able to execute their mandates. The government will do what it can, but we also want to strengthen strategic alliances and partnerships, not just within this country, but with other players internationally, so that we augment each other's efforts towards realizing the goals and objectives that we intend to pursue, while also aligned to the fact that we don't operate in a vacuum. We also need to align our operations or programs to both the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals on one hand, but the AU's Agenda 2063 on the other, and the EAC Vision 2050. So we are going to have a multifaceted approach to government, so that we are constantly engaging the relevant stakeholders from time to time. And all we can seek from Kenyans and other players is to create an enabling environment for the government to be able to deliver on its mandate.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Waziri, for joining us this morning. Indeed, our pleasure to host you. We wish you all the best as you execute your duties at the Ministry of ICT. This is where we put a cap on our interview this morning. We've been speaking to Eliud Owalo, the ICT Cabinet Secretary. Quite a loaded vision for the ministry and indeed his work. Thank you for joining us this morning. We continue with Good Morning Kenya. Don't go too far.
Thank you very much.
Asante.